Hey guys, you're watching PhoneArena's in-depth video comparison between the Google Nexus S and the Apple iPhone 4. Both devices are currently available right now in the market, and they also both sport the same $200 on-contract price. So if you're interested in buying either handset for someone this holiday season or for yourself, we'll just check these two out, see how they perform against one another, and see which is the better device between the two. On one side, the Google Nexus S was recently launched, and it has available support for T-Mobile's 3G bands. It has some interesting features such as the gorgeous Super AMOLED display and an NFC chip inside of it, while the Apple iPhone 4, in our countless video comparisons, is still pretty much a very well-rounded device, very fluid operating system. On top of that, has some killer hardware. So if you're interested in either checking out both these handsets, just watch our comparison, and you'll see for yourself which is the right one for you. Even though both devices might share that slate form factor, very clean looking devices, their choice of materials are very different from one another. On one hand, the Apple iPhone 4 utilizes the glass-like material in the front and back, which is sandwiched together with the stainless steel brush band, which does give it a little bit more premium feel in the hand, and on top of that, a sense of durability versus the all-plastic construction of the Google Nexus S, which does tend to attract a lot of fingerprints and smudges, and also more prone to scratching, and it's very evident in just the few days we've been using it. Luckily, though, it does sport an interesting design with the contour display, which gives it a little bit of curve to it, and its choice of materials does make the handset a little bit lighter than the Apple iPhone 4. They're both very streamlined. The iPhone 4 measures in at 0.37 inches thick, and the Google Nexus S measures in at 0.43 inches thick. But between the two, we'd have to hand it to the iPhone 4. It just has a little bit more striking design over the Google Nexus S. Easily one of the more striking things about both handsets has to be their displays. On one side, you have the Apple iPhone 4's 3.5-inch Retina display, which has a resolution of 640 by 960, versus the Super AMOLED display of the Google Nexus S, which has a resolution of 480 by 800 pixels, WVGA. They both support the same amount of support for color, 16.7 million. But as far as just detail or just by the numbers, pixel density goes to the Apple iPhone 4. You can just make out even the tiniest of text. But honestly, you're not going to notice too much of a difference with the Google Nexus S just because of its great resolution still. Colors have to go to the Google Nexus S just because they're slightly more rich looking and vibrant versus the iPhone 4. They both offer very good viewing angles, in fact. You're not going to have a problem using either of both handsets in outdoor conditions. As you can tell, so we move it left and right, at every angle you look at it, it still manages to radiate quite well, and its overall luminance is very striking. Now, the one complaint that we have about the Google Nexus S is the buttons on the front, the capacitive buttons. As you can tell, if it's turned off, you really can't see. Even when you turn on the handset, it's very difficult to make them out versus the easily and more distinguishable single button of the iPhone 4. On the left side of both phones, you're going to find their volume rockers, which are more than distinguishable to the finger. With the iPhone 4, it's separated by two buttons, volume up, volume down, versus the single one on the Google Nexus S. Luckily, they're very pronounced and easily pressed with a tactile response. The iPhone 4 also includes a switch to put it in vibrate mode. Between the two phones, we prefer the dedicated power button of the Apple iPhone 4 just because it's located on the top side of the phone, and it is a little bit more springy and distinguishable to the finger versus the Google Nexus S, which is found on the right side of the phone. Both handsets sport 3.5mm headset jacks. On the iPhone 4, it's on the top edge, while it's found on the bottom edge on the Google Nexus S, alongside with the micro USB port for charging, where on the iPhone 4, it's proprietary ports found on the bottom edge. Additionally, both handsets sport front-facing VGA cameras, 0.3 megapixel ones right in the front, alongside next to the earpieces. And finally, on the back, you find their 5 megapixel autofocus cameras with flashes. They're both located on the top left-hand side of the phones. You have the notches for the speakerphone right there on the Google Nexus S, while it's found at the bottom on the iPhone 4. Now, the Google Nexus S has a removable battery, which is something that's not offered on the iPhone 4. It also includes the NFC chip on the back here. It gives you access to the battery. You have the SIM card slot here, while the iPhone 4, it sports a micro SIM card, and you have to open up on the side. To better establish the kind of color production each handset has to offer, we're going to show you some quick examples here. On the left, you have the samples with the iPhone 4, and on the right, you have the ones with the Google Nexus S. and its Super AMOLED display. Granted that the iPhone 4 has the better pixel density, so it's a little bit more detailed, but as far as color output is concerned, we have to hand it again still to the Google Nexus S and the Super AMOLED display. It just slightly brighter output, and on top of that, colors are very deep and lush looking. Especially with the color black, you definitely notice that perfect black color versus sometimes a little bit hazy looking ones with the iPhone 4, but it still does a respectable job. Both devices have really killer hardware underneath the hood. Both are powered by 1 GHz processors. You have the Cortex-A8 Hummingbird processor on the Google Nexus S versus the Apple A4 processor, 1 GHz on the Apple iPhone 4. So they both exhibit a sense of speed and responsiveness when you're just navigating about the platforms. Applications load up very quickly. There's barely any lag or any or stuttery movements with the platforms. And overall, we're happy with the level of speed they both have to deliver. In terms of presentation and overall look and feel of the platforms, the Google Nexus S and Android 2.3 definitely reigns on top over iOS 4 on the iPhone 4. The only thing that you'll probably be able to change with the iPhone 4 is the placement of the icons and of course the wallpaper in the background, but that doesn't really compete when you compare to the high level of personalization that the Google Nexus S has to offer. It has animated wallpapers. You could place a bunch of different widgets on the home screens and just a little bit more flexibility in that aspect. As for the social networking experience, both handsets are able to deliver a satisfying one. Now, once you download the specific apps like Facebook or even Twitter, it's going to give you a really nice experience. You could even sync over your contacts from those respective accounts to your address book in your phone. So when you go to the Contacts app, you'll be able to view the latest updates of your friends. Setting up an email is a simple process. Generally, you just put in your email address and password and automatically will set it up. There are some situations where you're going to require some additional pieces of information to correctly set up. But in terms of just the overall Gmail experience, you got to hand it to the Google Nexus S just because it's a Google device and offers just some of the rich features that you find on the desktop version of Gmail. The messaging experience is pretty much dead even with both handsets, and as you can tell with the Google Nexus S, even though it has a larger size display, the buttons on the keyboard aren't as large as the one that's offered on the iPhone 4, but still, both are very responsive and you'll easily speed type a lot faster. Now the great thing about the Google Nexus S keyboard is the fact that it implements the numbers directly on the top row of buttons, which makes it a little bit more convenient versus the required pressing of the numbers button on the iPhone 4. When you tilt it to landscape, they're still both going to give you a really nice keyboard layout, but as you can tell already, the Google Nexus S has a slight advantage just because of its larger screen. If it weren't for Flash 10.1 support with the Google Nexus S on Android 2.3 Gingerbread, then the web browsing experience would have been pretty much even. Both offer a fantastic experience. As you can tell, scrolling is pretty smooth, but there is a tendency to be somewhat a slight jerkiness, especially when there's Flash content loaded on the Google Nexus S. They both have support for multi-touch gestures, and you can double tap to zoom into a specific area. But either way, it's going to deliver a great experience. You just get more of that slightly desktop feel with the Google Nexus S. It's kind of surprising, but when you think about it closely, both handsets utilize older music player interfaces. With the iPhone 4, it has the cover flow, while on the Google Nexus S, it mainly relies on the stock Android music player. When you're playing a song, they'll both display the album cover, track information, even on-screen controls. However, with the iPhone 4, it just presents itself a little bit more visuals with cover flow when you tilt into landscape, so you can browse through all your songs, which is definitely a lot nicer touch than what's offered on the Google Nexus S. In terms of audio quality from the speaker, they both do a respectable job, but the Google Nexus S has slightly stronger output, but does sound a little bit more tolerable with the iPhone 4. If you happen to be big on taking photographs, you probably want to stick with the Apple iPhone 4 just because it does a better job than what's offered on the Google Nexus S. The thing we like about it, the interface itself, it offers touch to focus, so you simply select a portion on the screen and automatically will focus. As you can tell, you have to sometimes fight with the exposure, but if you get it correctly, you'll take some stunning looking images indoors and outdoors. The iPhone 4 does a phenomenal job even in low lighting conditions, as it better represents colors and also has a good amount of detail in its shot. With the Google Nexus S, though, it lacks touch to focus, so you have to simply rely on the shutter key here. You got to hold it and then wait for it to focus and release it to take the shot. Now, the shots weren't as good as the iPhone 4. Pretty average looking in outdoor conditions. Indoors, though, it tends to be a little bit more grainy and noisy. And the LED flash doesn't do as good of a job than the iPhone 4. And again, if you're into shooting videos, you definitely want to stick with the iPhone 4 just because it has the ability to shoot 720p high-definition videos, which is something that's lacking on the Google Nexus S. It actually has a maximum shooting resolution of 720 by 480, which is DVD-like quality. Now, in terms of just capture speed, they're going to be at the same 29 frames per second as long as it's in good lighting condition. In poor lighting conditions, the iPhone 4 drops to a capture rate of 23 frames per second, while in the Google Nexus S, it drops all the way down to 16. So it's a substantial drop. And on top of that, the Google Nexus S lacks any autofocus when you're shooting videos, so it's not as sharp looking compared to the iPhone 4, even though you have to do touch to focus whenever you want to change the focus level. Caller quality has to go to the Google Nexus S just because voices on both ends of the line were pretty much distinct and clear in tone. We didn't have any issues hearing our calls, where on the iPhone 4 there is just some noticeable amount of static noise that can't be heard through the earpiece itself. When we use the speakerphone, the Google Nexus S has stronger tones, obviously, whereas the iPhone 4 it does have a tendency to be a little bit distorted on the highest volume setting. Both devices perform equally in terms of signal strength and also battery output. We didn't notice any major fluctuations in signal bars during our test in high coverage areas. Moreover, the battery life seems to be a little bit more above average compared to other smartphones. Our normal usage, you could probably get out a day and a half's use. Heavy users will probably get at least a day, while light users will get a little bit more out of the battery. But you just have to manage your applications on both platforms, iOS and even Android. And on top of that, you might want to also manually set the brightness to a little bit dimmer than normal. Depending on your personality, either handset can be the right solution for you, but if you happen to be more of a developer or just want complete control of the platform, you want to take a look at the Google Nexus S, thanks partly to the Android 2.3 Gingerbread experience. It also exhibits a little bit more personalized look and feel thanks to the animated wallpapers and widgets that it has to offer. On top of that, you have stuff like built-in mobile hotspot support, so you could connect your computer to it and share your data connectivity. You also have that nice-looking Super AMOLED display that's found on many Samsung Galaxy S devices out there. With the iPhone 4, though, it's probably geared towards more multimedia-centric individuals, so if you're into photos, videos, or even listening to music, this is definitely going to appeal to you a little bit more. And on top of that, too, we just feel like the construction and design of the iPhone 4 is a lot better than the Google Nexus S, especially at $200 on contract. You just feel like you're getting a better or even a more premium device with the iPhone 4 versus the Google Nexus S. But in any event, they both exhibit a really great platform experience. They'll both get the latest and greatest in updates, so you're not going to have to worry. But in terms of just a broad sense of appeal, we'd probably say that the iPhone 4 will have that just slightly more than the Google Nexus S. So if you'd like to learn more about both handsets or for the latest cell phone reviews, news specs, or information, you could check us out at PhoneArena.com.